In today's story, I'd like to address racism in the context of this Leonard Roberts versus Ali Larter story in the news. Because I think it really encapsulates all that is wrong with SJW slash cancel culture. Which side will I land on? Well, find out. Heyo, Xenpuck here. Today I'm speaking as a minor minority in the great country of the USA because reading this story really cracked me up. First, some context, okay? I like Leonard Roberts, okay? Mostly for his work on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It was an awesome show, go check that out if you haven't. I also like Ali Larter. I mean, come on, Varsity Blues? She's got that all-American standard of beauty. What red-hot-blooded American dude wouldn't like Ali Larter? I can't think of any. And I also like the show Heroes, right? The show that they met and worked on. It was like X-Men-ish, and they tried really hard not to jump the shark. I would say to varying degrees of success, especially in the later seasons. So what is the story here? I'll give you a quick one-sentence summary, okay? Our black leading man, that's Leonard Roberts, felt the white lady, which is Ali Larter, was not nice to him, and the show and her were possibly racist. That's the story. So here are my many points of contention against this argument. Number one, wow. First of all, that show was like more than 10 years ago, more like 15 years ago. Why bring this back up now? That's minus points just for the terrible lag, okay? Seriously, this is like when people complain about what old movie stars said 50 years ago that might be racist now. There's literally TikTok stars that weren't even born yet when these allegations actually occurred. We're in the internet age now, okay? Standards do change, and very, very rapidly. Oh my god. Point number two. So the main crux is that, Roberts mentioned how Ali Larter reacted differently to intimate scenes with him versus with a white co-star. Okay, that's fair. But that's the sample size of like two people, one black and one white. Okay, so really just one data point on each race. That's not even enough to point to a direction on a statistical chart, okay? Now, if you heard that Ali Larter dissed 10 black co-stars, but was okay, improvising with 10 white co-stars, then we'd maybe be able to establish a trend, okay? But with only a sample size of one per race, you know what it could be? Maybe she just liked the other dude better as a person. Is that possible? Oh my god. Point number three, okay, I really just don't understand why race was the first thing that came to mind in Roberts' brain, to be honest, right? Or maybe it's the interviewer's, spin on it. Do you guys remember the show Heroes, right? They did push, as a lead, a pudgy Asian nerd, okay? How racist can a show be if out of an ensemble cast, the short, fat Asian dude has a main role, and the tall, handsome black dude didn't last the season, and we immediately go to race as the big issue here for that specific show? Okay. Let's not forget, let's recall who the big bad was for the majority of the seasons of the show. Pretty sure that was the guy who ends up playing the Vulcan on Star Trek later on. Okay, that's just a regular white guy. Is that okay? I mean, are white people being overrepresented as villains? Is that fact a good one or a bad one? Like, you see what I'm saying? In the world of diversity, is it okay for the majority race to be presented as bad? I mean, honestly, what can you do at this point? Point number four. Look, when it boils down to it, the whole story seems to hinge on how somehow a white lady won over a black man. Okay, I'm personally, of course, I'm not either of those two groups of people, right? I don't belong to those groups. And what I would like to avoid is devolve into like, who's the greater victim here, okay? A dude from a race that's generally oppressed, or seen as repressed, or a lady who's constantly on the verge of being over-sexualized simply based on her looks, okay? If this race towards who's had it worst line of thinking continues, I mean, how does that actually empower anyone, right? Except to just constantly, you know, everyone's simply complaining about how tough it is to be, you know, either a black dude or a lady, right? Now, this story became actual news because Ali Larter actually put out an apology, to me, to the best of her ability to do so, because all she really said was, hey, really sorry you remember things differently. I love that apology, because to me, that's not actually an apology, but I do think it's probably truthful. I mean, do you remember the exact mindset you had 15 years ago on a specific day or month? Even if you said, yes, I have a great memory, I do remember exactly what happened 15 years ago, I'd argue your memory of such a period is probably inaccurate anyway, because we human beings are actually quite terrible at remembering exactly how things happened without the influences of how we are currently, right? So in conclusion, why is this even a story? I want to talk about this because in the context of our very quick to cancel culture, such a story will immediately imply that Ali Larter is a racist. Jesus, a white lady didn't treat you exactly the same as a white co-star and she's a racist? I mean, that is just a ridiculous leap of faith. By that logic, well, I've seen studies that have shown that ladies don't generally like Asian dudes on dating sites. Therefore, they must all be racists? What a world would I live in if I actually believed that? And well, let me be clear, because I'm a cynic. Even if I thought that was true, how would propagating such a fact help the world become a better place, okay? Instead, I'd rather spread anecdotal tales of how different races do get along. You know why? Because even though, by definition, anecdotal tales are not statistically relevant, okay? If I talk about how people do get along, at least people who hear the story will start to also believe, right? Because we are a herd. Human beings belong in the herd mentality, right? And that way, maybe we will get along slightly better. Instead of this type of story where someone mentions how, like, oh, I was treated poorly a decade ago by some lady who, I don't know, maybe she was having a bad month, okay? Instead of these stories of forced outrage, okay? It's entirely reasonable for two people to have conflicting memories of the same exact events, right? Still doesn't imply that either person's racist, though. Anyway, that's just my take. Check out some of my other videos in them corners, because I have all the time in the world to just talk to you guys for schnitz and giggles. So, like, comment, and subscribe, and cheers.